Max Verstappen is officially a four-time world champion in what must be, despite some controversial moments along the way, one of the most driver-oriented world championship wins of all time. The team fell apart around him both technically and from a personnel point of view, and as we see one championship come to a close, we see another heat up with increasing intensity. Those that watch the sport for their cults of personality feel free to say that the season is over, but the arguably more important championship in regards to how next year and the new regulations will play out is still yet to be decided. How is it then that, despite three teams still being in tight contention for the top spot, not a single team looks worthy of winning it? Bottle jobs, morons, and disappointments beleaguer all three of the top teams, with possibly some of the most obvious displays of each being on offer for all to see this weekend. As Max Verstappen once again proves to be the difference for Red Bull Racing, could we be seeing the difference at both Ferrari and McLaren, but for all of the wrong reasons? Want to know why the Constructors' Championship could lead to some pretty big complications? The end of this year could dictate the shape of the next 6 years, so why is nobody willing to take it by the throat? Possibly the only thing weirder than the drivers' cooldown room this weekend was how Mercedes seemed to yet again flip the form of the grid on its head. Truly the Tottenham Hotspur of F1 this season, capable of rock bottom and then soaring heights just mere weeks apart, Mercedes' polarity shift has inadvertently delivered us a far more exciting end to the season, where three teams are still in very tight contention for the Constructors' Championship. Well, it would be three teams if Red Bull had two competitive drivers. Now 53 points behind the leading McLaren, Red Bull rely on the seemingly impossible, Sergio Perez actually scoring a decent points haul. Yet another embarrassing weekend for the Mexican driver, being out-qualified by a Sauber, as well as once again failing to beat Yuki Tsunoda in a car that should be incapable of beating a Red Bull. The fact that he has been given so many opportunities and being consistently forgiven for being so woeful actually makes us believe that he will somehow retain his seat for next year, which is absolutely mental. Max has now won half of his Drivers' Championships without winning the Constructors, unless some kind of miracle occurs this year, which makes his four-peat all the more impressive. It would seem that, despite Max's insinuations following the race that all four of the top teams will be in a close-fought battle for both championships next season, Red Bull may only be competitive in one, and that is if they have learned from their failings this year that were only compensated by the individual brilliance of Max Verstappen. According to Helmut Marko, Sergio Perez may not exactly be the most popular man in Milton Keynes right now, with the team advisor saying, "Max Verstappen is 200 points ahead of Sergio. Our priority was his championship, but our staff are disappointed because they will not receive a bonus based on our position in the Constructors' Championship." However, for as long as Checo's overwhelming backing exists, as let's face it, we are now beyond it being argued that he is either good enough for Red Bull or capable of wrapping his head around the car, we are likely to see Perez maintain his position, with the once much-loved Mexican now being the most frustrating and costly pay driver on the grid. For the time being, the greatest threat to McLaren's current lead at the top of the Constructors is Ferrari. However, it seems that they are insistent on trying to sabotage themselves. Not only did Carlos Sainz prove to be the most competent race strategist at the team yet again, but the entire pit wall seemed to regress back to having the communication capabilities of a bunch of preschoolers. Currently sitting 24 points behind McLaren after their late season charge, with P2 and P4 still possible in the Drivers' Championship to boot, Ferrari have put themselves in a good position to close the season on a high. However, the P3 and P4 that Sainz and Leclerc achieved at Las Vegas seemed to be in spite of the pit wall's efforts, and worse, could have been P2 for Sainz, much to Martin Brundle's bemusement, according to the race analytics and according to Carlos Sainz. However, despite the points potentially left on the table for Sainz, it was Charles Leclerc that was absolutely seething at the end of the race, with him letting loose an enraged outburst after the race. "Yeah, I did my job, but being nice F's me over all the effing time. All the effing time. It's not even being nice. It's just being respectful. I know I need to shut up, but at one point it's always the same, so..." Which then saw the following interaction between Charles' engineer, Bozzi, and the Monegasque driver. "Okay, but anyway, you did the right thing for the team. Pick up, please. Effing pick up what the F you want. And the radio is on. I'm sorry." Before Fred Vasseur interrupted him, prompting the Ferrari driver to stop his rant. In what seems to be a repetition of Sebastian Vettel's disillusion with the Scuderia, Charles Leclerc has seemingly had enough. This was all prompted by the team's decision to pit the two drivers separately, releasing Sainz immediately behind Leclerc on fresher tyres. In what was the equivalent of giving someone a heads up as you're already halfway through sucker punching them, this is the forward warning Charles received as Sainz was already on his way out the pits. Carlos has been told not to overtake, but it's really close. You might be just in front. He has been told not to put you under pressure, so just take care of your tyres. With Leclerc replying, maybe try in Spanish, after Sainz naturally overtook him. It was yet another laughable display by Ferrari strategists and the pit wall, with the infamous "we are checking" making a return, and it's fair to say that, unless Ferrari can get their act together, both drivers face an uphill battle for the remainder of the season, and sadly for Charles, things aren't exactly going to get easier next season, as if Ferrari can deliver their drivers a competitive car, then Lewis Hamilton isn't exactly going to be any easier or less brutal than having Carlos Sainz for a teammate. More worrying for Charles, he let slip that things behind the scenes at Ferrari are anything but peaceful, with the Monegasque driver threatening to enter his villain era. I'm not happy with Carlos, but I won't go into details. Why? Because we talk about these things before the race, and I'm always the one who respects these agreements. From now on, I'll only think about myself. Charles also seemed to cryptically allude that things behind the scenes beyond his relationship with the exiting Carlos Sainz aren't exactly peachy. He refused to elaborate on what his vague comments meant. However, reading between the lines brings you to the conclusion that Ferrari continues to be a confused mess of a team incapable of handling their drivers being critical of them, with the big personalities they hire constantly being suppressed from speaking out, just like we saw with Seb. Well, they're surely going to love having Lewis Hamilton in the team, aren't they? Winning 5 out of 22 races for McLaren would have been an absolutely unreal season in any of the past 10 years. But this year, considering the pace of the car as well as the fact that Mercedes have only won a single race fewer, with a car that seemingly has bipolar, then it really does make you question just where it all went wrong for McLaren this season in regards to the Drivers' Championship. We've always said that the thing that will win Max the World Championship this year is other drivers taking points off of each other with no one driver posing enough of a challenge individually. And sadly, Lando Norris just proved to not be clinical enough, lacking the conviction to secure the maximum points possible too many times this year. Lando pointed out the key difference that lost him the title this year, one that he may look back on sorely given how close the field looks like it will be next year, and then the unknown reshuffling of the pack with the new regulations on the horizon, with the McLaren driver having this to say. Congrats to Max. Knowing the championship is 100% over, we always had a little hope inside, but he drove an incredible season. When he had the quickest car, he dominated. When he didn't, he was still there and always on my heels. He made my life tough, we made his tough I'm sure at times, but he drove a better season, and of course a big congrats to him. That's the main thing. Sadly for Norris, he and the team had to learn how to handle the front end of the field incredibly quickly, and it seems that their inexperience at the sharp end ultimately let too many points slip from their grasp, while those who are used to fighting for championships maximized any opportunity to seize the day, whether that be the bipolar Mercedes, the incumbent champions Red Bull, or Ferrari capitalizing on moments of passion alone. So who do you think will come out on top in the Constructors this year? Let us know what you think in the comments below. Thank you for watching.